Hello, hello, Lino. Welcome to the Mentally a Badass podcast. I'm so happy to have you today.
Thanks so much. It's awesome to be here right before the holidays. I love it.
Yes, perfect. What a gift to me. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. It's a gift for me too. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I've been wanting to have this podcast for so long. And I was actually thinking about this conversation over the last coming weeks. I was like, when am I going to interview him? And then I was like, what? Because like when you schedule yourself, I'm like, when did he schedule that? When am I going to talk? Like, I was like so excited. So I
I
was like,
think
I'm
maybe it was a
so
little over a month ago when I scheduled. Yeah.
Yes, it was so long ago, and I was like, "This is happening, right? Like, what
Yeah.
happened?" Yeah, yeah. It's just like some people like schedule so far in advance, but I was like, "Yes, I saw you in the calendar for this week," and I was like, "Yes, we're gonna talk about it." So we're gonna be talking about your experience transitioning. So I do want to talk about your life before transitioning. Can we go into it? Like, when did you? I guess when did you know?
Yeah.
That's making sense. Yeah.
So I mean that's a common question,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like when did you know versus when did you become aware, or when were you, I guess, in accordance to your alignment. I mean, that question can go into a lot of different avenues and a lot of different ways it can be expressed.
Hmm.
So whenever I hear like when did you know, the first thing that actually that hits me, that actual question is a common question that a lot of gays and lesbians ask heterosexual people. And
Yeah.
that's, how did you know that you were heterosexual? You know, when did you know, if you identify as a female and as a
Hmm.
woman, a cis heterosexual woman, when did you know that you were a cis heterosexual woman? You're
Yeah.
like, well, I've known my whole life. Okay, well, since when? Well, since I was a little kid. No, that's really the best answer I can give as far as like when I knew. However, there are some people that discover later. And that's the beautiful thing about life. Life is a journey. You have experiences, and through these experiences, you see things through a different lens. You open your heart and you realize who you are, and everything unfolds beautifully the way the seasons unfold every year with Mother Nature. And so, in that answer for me, when did I know? So, I always felt I was a boy. However, I'm about to be 45 next year, and transgender, the word trans, wasn't existed for maybe just about 10 years ago. So,
Mhm.
as a little kid, I felt like a boy. However, that's something I really can't say growing up in a Catholic Latino household. There's just no way. And growing up with just an only a brother, my brother and I, my mother dressed me very feminine. And if ever I try to dress like my brother or try to dress like a boy, she would take the clothes off me and put me in a dress and bows in my hair. And the more I dressed like a boy, the more feminine she made me. So it was very clear to me as a child that I couldn't express myself the way that I wanted to. I had to be, in order for mom and dad to love me, I
Huh.
needed to be very feminine. So, but going back to your question, when did I know? I knew that I wanted to identify in a more masculine energy since the time I was about 4 years old.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really great answer. And this one thing because when you asked that question, like, how did you know that you're heterosexual? And then and how do I know if I'm like a female? So that got me thinking of
Right.
myself.
Right.
And I was thinking back, I was like, okay, so I think it's just because you're like I guess it's kind of like you're taught, like you're told that, like your caregiver says, yeah, you're a girl. And then like when you're in school, oh, like you like boys.
Yeah.
But I think my question is because you were mentioning that when you feel like more that you want to be in boy clothes and be a boy, and then your mother kept putting you on more feminine clothes that just you it didn't feel that it was right. So there's this. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this term, tomboy. So like, did people ever think like? I guess my question is how? Because like when I was a kid, I was kind of like a tomboy. I didn't like pink. I didn't like the girly stuff or anything like that, right? But when I was a child, at the time we never really heard of transgender. We don't know any of that. So I guess what's your opinion on somebody like unless thinking that like the word tomboy versus like knowing that you're actually a male? Like what would be like the difference that you can differentiate?
From what I know, I mean, my these are just this my personal lived experience. Everyone can
Mhm.
have their own feeling about that word, but my personal feeling, because you're asking me personally, I mean, a tomboy can just be, is usually, growing up, my understanding of tomboy is you're a girl born a female, and you like to dress like a boy and do boy stuff, but you still maybe you also like the opposite gender, or maybe you also like the same gender. whatever the case is, you just kind of present yourself. It has nothing to do with who you're attracted to. It has to do with the
Yes.
things that you like to look like, or do activities, skateboarding. I mean, whatever is not considered your typical, stereotypical female. I want to, skateboard versus ballet. Okay,
Mhm.
well, you're a tomboy then. I guess
Yeah.
so. Sure. So that's my perspective of tomboy.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. So, I've talked to other people who were transgender. Actually, recently, my ex transitioned, and I actually had like no idea. And she told me that she knew as soon as like as a child, but then felt like she had to keep like pushing it like to back of her like I guess the back of her head and try to pretend that she is a he. Like did you feel and like in society that you had to, I guess, pretend that you're not a male and felt that kind of pressure?
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I mean, not only because culturally speaking, and because of the amount of resistance that my family had whenever I dressed like a boy. So
Mhm.
growing up, I transitioned at 34. It's barely going to go on in 7 years this coming May. So I lived my whole life, pretty much 34 years as a woman. And I had my closet separated in female clothes and boy clothes.
Mhm.
Female clothes for society and work and mom and dad and family members. Boy clothes when I can be myself at home, close the door, play some music, karaoke, put on a baseball cap, whatever, and feel comfortable. I could only be me behind doors. And so even jobs that I had before, where I would apply for jobs, go to interviews, and be in a woman's suit, and then I get comfortable with the job, and next thing I'm wearing like a guy's suit. And I had boy short hair also as a female, and I'd get comments like, well, I remember a manager I had once said to me, "This isn't how we hired you." Almost like
Mhm.
they were seeing that I was changing my look. And I was like, yeah, well, okay, at that point, but I mean, there was a lot of, the discrimination that I faced when I did make those changes, because they expected me to go the way that I presented, but it was really inner turmoil. How am I supposed to be my authentic self if people are going to talk crap and not accept me? And neither is my family. So it was a constant struggle with me, with my energy, really constant
Yeah.
struggling with my energy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say from the way I'm hearing it is that it definitely took a toll on your mental health. And I feel like that's a given. Like I don't even have to ask that question.
But yeah,
Yeah. So when it comes to support system, because you mentioned that your parents weren't really like supportive, like do you have a relationship with them now by any chance?
we do. We have a relationship
Okay.
now. It took maybe the first 3 years of transitioning. They didn't really talk to me much, but
Hmm.
also it could also be when I think back, I also distanced myself from them. I knew that I was going to go through some changes. Facial hair came in quick. My voice changed, and it was 3 years of them really not wanting to talk to me.
Mm.
So yeah, it was rough. It was rough. But my mother came around maybe the third year. My father close to the fourth or the fifth year of transition.
Yeah, that must have felt really lonely around that time. Who did you have that was your support system during the transition?
I'm really blessed with a lot of friends. I mean, a lot of friends, and all my friends are really supportive. Some I lost, maybe a couple friends I lost along the way that didn't
Yeah.
really truly understand. I had comments like, "Why do you want to be a boy? You're such a beautiful girl." I was a very beautiful female, so I comments like that, that didn't kind of made me cringe. I'm like, well, because I'm a beautiful female, I can't feel like a man. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
people have their ideas of you when they see you, and they want to keep you in their idea. And so when you go out of that idea and you become your authentic self, some people will face some backlash and some people won't. But for the most part, everybody else has come around. I had a really great support system with friends,
Mhm.
and I'm really blessed to have a soul family.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fantastic. And when you were saying like, "Oh, how can you be want to be a man? You're so beautiful." When you said that, it's like it kind of made me think, "Oh, how is she a lesbian? She's so pretty." Like,
Yeah. Oh, I
like
got that all the time. I got that all the time as a lesbian.
yeah, so actually I do want to ask that real quick. So like relationship wise, did you I guess my question is like did you date girls? Did you date guys? Like how was your
So
sexual relationships?
it's a good question. So initially, I started dating girls, and it was behind my parents' back. And I remember telling my parents the first time, because at the time I just thought I was a lesbian. I didn't
Mhm.
I didn't know. I knew that I was attracted to women, There was no other word. I couldn't transition back in 1992. So
Mhm.
it was like, okay, well, I must be a lesbian. I'm a girl and I like girls. And so when I first told my parents, actually, I first told them when I was 10. I said, "Hey, mom and dad, I don't like boys." And they're like, "Good, you're only 10." And I was like, "All right, cool, awesome," you know.
That's what they hope.
Right. And then I told them again at 12. I said, "Hey, I don't like boys. I like girls." And then they're like, you know. And so I mean, from there forward, it was like it was a big no-no to be, to be a lesbian. So wait, what was your question? I kind of forgot right
No, no, you're good. And when you were saying that, I was like, that's a typical like Spanish household.
Yeah.
And yes, yes, and Catholic. Like I'm Cuban, so I came from a Spanish family as well, and then like they're Catholic, but it's not to like an extreme. If you know what I mean. Okay, yeah. So my question was like your sexual relationships over the
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Thank you. So I started, crushing on girls, kissing girls when I was 13, 14, whatever, or they would kiss me, and I loved it. But I got a lot of friends and peer pressure from school and people wanting to kick my butt in junior high and high school. They're like, "You're a
Mm,
lesbian," and right away, like the cholas and stuff were like, "Hey, you hitting on my girl? You hitting on my sister?" And I'd be like, "No, man, they're hitting on me." So I had to quickly change it and say, "No, I'm bi." So I used to tell people,
yeah.
I'm bi. No, I'm bi. And then next thing I know, so I'd have friends or even my family saying, "Well, how do you know you really like girls if you haven't been with a boy? How do you know? How do you know? How do you know?" When you're a young kid and everyone's throwing all this stuff at you, how do you know? I'm like, damn, well, I might as well try it. So I tried it. I tried it many times. I tried it in my late teens. I tried it in my 20s and even in my very early 30s. And every time I tried it, I felt disgusted with myself. I even felt nauseous to my stomach and I would get sick. And so, I mean, like physically, like nauseous, sick. Anytime I tried it. And so, I mean, do have some beautiful experiences with men, men that did treat me well, men that didn't treat me well, men that,
Actually.
a lot of the times I actually felt like I was raped by these guys because in my
Oh.
head I was saying no, 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 but yet I have to. So I said yes. And that resulted with a lot of pain in areas I didn't want pain and including with feeling physically sick. And so I had to, I was really betraying myself, betraying my body every time I went there.
Mhm.
And what actually really changed me into being my full self. So I survived a rare genetic disease called Muckle-Wells syndrome. It's statistically 1 in a million. And in just 12 years of my life, I had close to 50 surgeries. You heard that right, 50, 50.
Yeah, I have that
So
written
yeah,
down
it's
here.
really wild. So I lived in the hospital for over 12 years. And the
Really?
disease, I mean, it's a very, very complicated disease. And because it's statistically 1 in a million, there's not that much research about it. There's not many medications. There's actually only one medication for it. But I was 36 years old when I got diagnosed. So it was actually when I was living in these hospitals and I was dying a very slow death at the time when I decided to transition. I said, I'm tired of doing things for people. I'm tired of trying to make people happy. I don't even know if I'm going to live from this rare genetic disease. I'm just going to transition and not tell anybody. And so I met an endocrinologist. I had a psychologist for over 20 years. They knew my history, no problem. They signed it off, and I got on hormones. And so I guess you can say I did it kind of quietly on my own. And after that, I was single for 8.5 years. I didn't kiss a girl for 8.5 years. And so I called myself a born again virgin because at 40 years old, yeah, at 40 years old, I hadn't had one experience, not one sexual experience with a female. Neither had I kissed anyone. And that was very challenging for me. But I was going through a lot of, recovering from all the surgeries that I had and also coming into my own new identity as a man. And so I
Yeah.
had a lot of insecurities at the time.
Yeah.
But here I am today and I'm in a beautiful almost 2-year relationship. So, I mean, things unfold beautifully at the end when you finally live to your authentic voice and your own energy.
Yeah, listening to you right now, I feel like you definitely had like that sense of relief, especially everything that you went through, and you know that you made the right choice. Because a lot of people, and we're gonna get into this with these questions that people in society asked and all this like controversy. I want to ask these questions to you and to get, of course, your feedback on it. But what I wanted to dive into, 'cause I actually did have a question for you. I kind of want to know a little bit more detail of the actual transition process. So, like, how long did it take? What are like the stages? I want to know
So
detail.
this question is specific to me because
Okay.
that question is different for every trans person you'll meet. Everyone's in a different stage of life. Not everybody chooses to have surgery to transition. Not everybody chooses even hormones to transition. So some people transitioning is just calling them by their preferred pronouns. Sometimes it's they,
Oh,
them. Sometimes it's
yeah.
he, she, he, and that's enough for them. Now, some transgender people just, whether they're male or female, choose to have one of the surgery or all of the surgeries. It's really in alignment to their energy. It's specific to them. And so the way that I can say this is, let's just hypothetically say that there's a woman that is not happy, a cis heterosexual cis presenting woman that is not happy with her breast size or her butt size. It's like, okay, well, when will you feel fully transitioned and happy? What cosmetic surgery will you finally feel woman enough? When you have a double D, when you have a bigger butt, I mean, what's it going to be? Well, I'm not sure, but let me see what it's going to take, because right now I don't feel like the full woman that I am. So it's not really necessarily like a trans experience, but it's a human experience on what people do to feel comfortable in their body. So I think that there's a lot of misconceptions on people feeling like, if you're trans, did you have the surgery? I'm like, wow, no,
And
did
the
you? To,
hormones.
I mean, did you? What about you,
Yeah.
dude? So I mean, it's really, and it's, these are great questions, because this is how we learn, and this is how we connect, and this is how we get to know that we actually all, as a humanity, have a lot more in common than not.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, I'm learning so much from you. And I really appreciate you first saying that I'm asking good questions because, like, for me, it's a very sensitive topic. And I never ever want to ask something where
Right.
I don't know, that's inappropriate or offensive or rude or just like, this is so,
Absolutely, yeah.
so it's very, I feel like relief in that. And it's a topic that needs to be spoken about. And I know for me, it's like, I know a little bit about it. I just, reality, like, don't know much. So it's like
Sure.
I'm like learning, and like the whole you saying that it's for like it's different for everybody. Like I literally did not even think about that at all. Like I do know people who go by like they, them, but I didn't know that was considered kind of like a transition, because when you think of transitioning transgender, you automatically go to surgery and hormones.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, but anything's a transition, really. I mean, when someone
Yeah.
gets married, they change their last name, and then
Yeah,
people
true.
have to all of a sudden get accustomed to their new last name. So, I mean, people have the ability and the freedom to do whatever's going to be authentic to their own life and their own life.
Yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm trying to think if there's like also some common misunderstandings that is currently, like, I'm trying to think of. Can you think of like any other misunderstanding that you can, I guess, debunk of how people see people who are transitioning?
Yeah, so I mean that's a huge one that you just mentioned right now, where a lot of people feel that the trans people have to have surgeries, but that's not. It's that you don't have to have a surgery to. It's
Hmm.
just kind of like, it's almost like assuming, where if you see like a feminine guy that's cis presenting or heterosexual, and saying, dude, are you ever, that's kind of puny and skinny, dude, do you ever want to get muscles to be a real man? Do you ever want to get bigger? So it's kind of like, what? No, I'm good the way I am. So some people are just good the way they are. Trans people are regular people. Sometimes they're just good the way they are. And then some
Yeah.
people, they want to have it all. I had it all. I mean, why not? I want the full lived on experience. Give it to me. So, I mean, that's just my personal, so the transition can start anytime in life. Someone can come out
Yeah.
as trans and then 5 years later say, maybe I'll get on hormones now. Maybe 5 years later, maybe I'll have my chest, mastectomy. Maybe I won't. But another misconception is, a lot of people feel that, or they'll ask, like, well, or they'll assume that if a trans man will only like women, but there are some gay trans men. There are some men that were
Yes.
women, right? Before they dated men, but they
Hmm.
feel like a man. They
Hmm.
transition into a man and they still date men. And so a lot of people think, well, hold on a minute. Why are you're a gay man? Like, well, yeah. Yeah. So they're like, yeah, I'm a gay man. So it doesn't matter. Well, your transition, like your physical self versus who you're attracted to, is completely separate.
Yeah.
Just the way it is with heterosexual cis people. It's
Yeah.
completely separate.
I actually learned that recently from my ex, because I did want to reach out to her and ask these questions. I think just, for me, because I'm trying to think of like, he's a her now, but at the time she was a he. It's so, I don't know how to like properly talk about this, which pronoun I should use. So it's kind of like a little, for me personally, a little confusing of how I should
Yeah,
talk about it appropriate.
sure.
So just for the point of what I want to talk about, I'm just gonna say he because at the time I was dating. I'm heterosexual. So at the time I thought that he was as well. And we dated for 2 years. So we were in a very committed relationship. And I knew that he struggled with body issues, but I thought that it had to do because he used to be heavy and then ran a lot, like did a lot of running and cardio. And basically he lost weight like really, really, really fast. And so that contributed to body issues. And so but he told me when I was asking questions that that she pretty much knew, like, this whole time was just trying to pretend that she was happy. And so and then apparently some, like, gender roles, like, for example, like, that you can think of in a relationship, it was so hard for her. And then when I was listening to this, I'm like, I kind of felt like I felt horrible because I had no idea
Yeah.
she was struggling. I feel like I'm pretty good at, like, I'm gonna say, I guess in my head, when I found out, I was completely like caught off guard. Like I had no idea. And
Yeah.
so I did ask her, I said, because in my, and like, I'm gonna tell you exactly how I felt. I'm gonna be completely honest. I was like thinking like, oh, was our relationship just a lie? Like, was I a cover up? Like that was my thought process.
Sure.
And because I wasn't just like dating this person for like a month or we
Right. It's
had
two
a
years.
2 years
Yeah.
committed relationship. We even like talked about marriage here and there. It's like we were very serious. So when I found this whole time that she was keeping the secret because she wasn't she was scared to come out, and she had a father that was like old that didn't, it was hateful towards that. So I can understand why she would keep it a secret. But yeah, so I mean, obviously if I did find out during the relationship, naturally we would have to go our separate ways. But yeah, so I asked her, I basically said like, I hate to ask this question, but I feel like, was our whole relationship a lie? And then she said no, because she doesn't care about gender when it comes to dating.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's like kind of one thing I just felt like I was just like, because I haven't spoken to her in years. But the way I found out was actually interesting. Like it was through LinkedIn, and my friend texted me and said, I'm not going to mention names just for privacy, but she was like, "Oh, is this person?" And then I knew that was that person's LinkedIn because I am connected on LinkedIn, and then there was no photo at the time, and the last name was the same, but the first name was different, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know. Like I was like, because like I said, I didn't even think of, because at first we were wondering why the name would change. I was like, all I could think of is like transitioning, and there was also no photo. So I'm like, did someone get hacked? Like you never know if a bot changes the
Right.
name. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
like you don't want to
Right.
assume that it's transitioning, but there are kind of
Right.
like signs there. So
Sure.
what I did was like I knew where she worked. I feel like I'm kind of like creeping in stalker, but like I just had to have answers. So I googled it. I googled the actual, because she works at a college, and I saw, because they need to have a photo as in the staff. And then I saw the photo and I can tell that she was in the middle of it. And I'm like, I saw the facial features. I'm like, yep, that's her. So now we
Yeah.
had confirmation of that. And then so yeah, so in my head, I just like I didn't know how to react to it. It's like I mean, I obviously support it, obviously, but I think me just like I didn't know how to react. Like,
Sure.
what would you think? Like, I know that it's obviously different every person, and I know it's gonna be a hard question to answer, but if me being like super confused and thinking that it was a lie, I guess, do you think that's like a fair normal reaction? Because I sometimes get scared that because some people are not as understanding of me like being confused. Like some people be like, "Oh, you're a jerk," or you know what I
Sure.
mean? Like
Sure.
sometimes I just get scared that I don't understand something and I don't want to say the wrong thing and like, oh, you get canceled and you're an asshole. Like,
Right.
so I guess my question is like, I guess, do you think like the way I was thinking was appropriate? And
I mean, absolutely. And any
yeah,
feeling that you have at the moment is appropriate for you. The feeling
yeah,
that you have is a real feeling, and you're having that feeling for a reason. And so, I mean, and a lot of us, we internalize things. I mean, rightfully so. If it feels like a rejection to us, and it also feels like a
yes,
betrayal. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that tends to happen a lot when people haven't been taking care of themselves, and when they finally choose to take care of themselves, the other person sees them in a different light and starts to feel like, "Hang on a minute, well, did I who are you? Did I ever even know you?" And that really
Yes.
comes because that other person didn't really know themselves that well.
Mhm.
But it's a beautiful thing that they felt safe with you in that relationship to be with you for 2 years, and that you made them feel safe, and
Mhm.
most likely it was because of the safety that they were able to explore their internal feelings and come out with what's probably going to make them feel even more comfortable and truthful. So it's a really wonderful thing that they did to do this for their own energy and also for your own energy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can imagine that it was painful for you and also painful for her.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw it, I was just like, I have no idea how to react. I'm like, of course, I'm happy that you're happy. If you felt all this pain, you felt like you had to hide. So one side of me is like, yeah, like obviously I'm happy for her, but also I felt that feeling of betrayal, like you just said.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so
Yeah.
since I felt that, like I guess I kind of had like a mixed feelings and mixed emotions. Like one part of me like knew what the right thing to feel in this situation. And then the second thing was just like how I feel internally
Yeah.
about this, considering I dated
Sure.
him for 2 years. So I
Right.
kind of felt that sense of betrayal, and also I just that's also like a childhood wound of mine. So I don't know if that kind of like correlates and connects
Of course.
to each other, but I do appreciate you validating how I
Sure.
felt because I didn't know who to talk to about this. I did reach out to I did like ask my therapist because I when I felt that feeling of betrayal, I felt so shitty. I
Yeah.
was like my thoughts were like, am I a shitty person? I'm like, am I an asshole? Like I started like hating myself for a second. And then I'm like, when it happened, I also, like I said, it was all internalizing. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know what people were gonna think how I felt. Or think like, oh, you feel betrayed, like what the fuck, you're such a
Sure.
douche. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely wanted to cause you obviously understand where I'm coming from, and you're like
Absolutely.
you're the best person to validate how I
Yeah.
felt.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, when I was like talking to my ex, I did say like, "Oh, was everything alive?" I didn't say, "Oh, I felt betrayal," because I didn't want to do anything where it will make her feel bad of her
Right. Yeah.
decision. I want
Good.
her to be happy. I want her to, be who she's meant to be and such.
Exactly.
100% support it. So, yeah. So I feel like it's like kind of like low key therapy session for me. But yeah, I mean, this can help with like if people. I'm sure I'm not the only person who experienced
You're not.
the
No,
same
you're not.
thing.
No, you're not.
But yeah, so I want to now ask another question. Is a lot of people, and I guess I don't know if this is really, I guess, kind of considered political, but what do you think of people transitioning of being a minor?
So that's really it's really sensitive topic.
Yeah.
A lot of this is really up to the parents and how they're going to be handling it. And I mean, I've got my own personal opinions about that. I feel that hormone replacement therapy is different per state. And I mean, some states it's not even legal or it's not going to be legal at the moment.
Hmm.
But I do feel that it's important to explore if you have a minor that wants to explore that other, or they're telling you that they feel that other gender, allowing them to express themselves in that gender.
Hmm.
Now, hormones is touchy because you really start puberty when you're 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, and things can change for you.
Yeah.
I mean, a good example is Angelina Jolie's daughter, Shiloh,
Hmm.
wanted to go by a male name growing up, used to dress like a boy, and now she's in dresses. And so, but they allowed her at the time. They're like, she wants to be a boy, she wants to have a boy name, let's do it. She wants to dress like her brothers, dress like her brothers. And
Hmm.
so I would just advise parents to be flexible with their children, let them explore themselves, let them have fun in their exploration, and they might not even end up growing up to be the way that you even thought. They're just exploring. And if they did, at least you
Yeah.
let them explore along their way, and they're going to thank you for being supportive.
Yeah.
Just being supportive and really holding space for your minor and letting them figure out what life is about. Who are they? How are they coming to be? What are their likes and their dislikes? Things don't have to be black or white, black and white.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I think the best thing, yeah, you can do as a parent is just let them be free, let them explore. Like don't have them hide of who they feel like, they want to be. And like that's so important just as human beings as well. As like the whole frontal lobe and like decision making, that
Uh-huh.
whole point of it. So I guess like the way I thought of it is I feel that if like let's say if I had a kid and they said they want to transition and kind of and go through that whole, because if you go through it, you can't like go back. Is that correct? Or
What do you mean go through it? Meaning getting the surgeries and
like
completely
making this
transitioning?
decision of doing, the surgeries and such, because that's a huge decision.
It is. I mean, there's no way that, I mean, if I got off hormones now, I'm gonna always have facial hair.
Mhm.
My voice will probably stay the same because the vocal cords have stretched. They're shaped different now,
Okay.
stretched differently. I might feminize a little bit. Like maybe my skin will become a little thinner. Maybe my features will become a little not so sharp. Some things, because hormones is really what changes someone physically. And so
Mhm.
if there's really no physical detransition,
Yeah.
but if I ever, and I know I don't, but just hypothetically speaking, if I ever wanted to go back to Carolina, that's who she was, she will never look like that again. So it's
Yeah.
really a feeling. So if somebody doesn't, these cases are very rare. From what I
Mhm.
remember, the percentage is like 0.05% of
Mhm.
people that transition regret it or want to go back. It's so low.
Oh, okay.
And most of the time, people just feel free when they're able to transition.
Yeah, because that was pretty much what I was asking, if like if there's anybody who made the decision and was like, "Oh no, I regret it. Like this is not like, like the way like they feel like they made like the wrong decision." Because I feel
Yeah,
like as human beings, we have moments where we can't like feel like we can't like trust our brain. For me personally, I have that problem, but that's just because I have bipolar disorder. So sometimes I don't know if I'm like hypomanic and I think this is the right decision and then I do it and just does it. So that's just me personally, like my experience psychologically. So I guess that's the reason why I kind of have this thought process is because of my own personal experience. It's like I would never like want my child to go through feelings of regret, because your body is like you live in your body. It's very, very important. So I feel like as a parent, I I probably wouldn't allow it until 18 just for that reasoning. And then once they're of course an adult, I'll support whatever they do, of course, but by then they'll have more of a 18 is still kind of young.
it's very young.
It's still very like for me, I'm just like, it's still technically young, but legally I have no say.
Right. Yeah,
Like
exactly.
if it was up to me, I would say just because the reasoning of the frontal lobe, I would be like, oh, 25. Okay, that's when it's like formed, and you're, after that, like because as like right now I'm 29, so I do realize I learned recently about the whole takes till like you're 25, because my oh my gosh, my education was psychology. I only have a bachelor's, so I only know so much, and but I do learn a lot from my guests, and I do educate myself on a daily. But I learned, yeah, like this year, last year, that's 25 years old, and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, because I completely feel like a different person when it comes to like, for example, like I don't feel invincible anymore. That's one thing.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah, no, because I feel like when you're a teenager, you feel like you're invincible. That's
Yeah.
because your brain is still developing.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's
True.
like kind of like my 2 cents on that. But I guess it's like, we can have opinions, but I guess it really wasn't a question that you would want to really answer because it's really political. It's like seeing if you want like the government to be involved with it. Because like people always like actually when I live in Florida, so actually can but I live in Orlando area, so I'm surrounded by people who are not jerks. Anyway, so but I did used to live in an area in Florida where it was like their opinion about transgender was thinking it was like a sin or this, and actually like some person was like working on the house and actually was asking me opinions about it and trying to like convince me. It was just so weird in my opinion. But I guess this is really an opinion question. You can't answer if you don't want to. Like, would you think that the government should be involved in a decision?
What do I think the government should be involved in decision making for transgenders?
I think the answer would probably no from you. I don't know, is that a weird question I'm
Well, I guess
asking?
I don't understand the way that you asked the question. Is it
Yeah.
how do I feel about the government taking control of trans lives?
Yes. That was a better way of asking.
It's not, it's, this is what I have to say about it.
Hmm.
When I think of the United States, I think of, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
Hmm.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
Hmm.
liberty
Hmm.
for justice and
Hmm.
all.
Hmm.
When people want to control trans lives or even any lives in general, that's not being indivisible. That's not
Hmm.
liberty for justice and all. That's not one nation under God. That wasn't the vision of our
Yeah.
founding fathers.
Yeah.
So it's really separating, and it's what causes war and chaos rather than accepting and even just going with what you're pledging allegiance to in your own country. People need to go back to what the founding fathers had a vision for, and that was to include, not seclude. That is
Hmm.
to look at adversity and diversity as inclusion, not as separate,
Hmm.
indivisible. When you become indivisible and you connect and you come together, that is one nation under God, and that's God's loving light, divine light, and that's his vision. When you're going against that vision, there's resistance. When there's resistance, there's war, there's pain, there's control. We have no control over love. Love is the most easy flowing energy that's going to come to you, to anybody, when you open your heart. Those people are living in fear. They're coming from a land of trauma. They're coming from ancestral karma, ancestral pain. Drop all of that if you can, whatever it takes to soul search.
Hmm.
Find out who you are as a person before you go out and judge people. When you stop judging yourself, you stop judging everybody. And that's how people start to come together.
That was by far the best answer ever.
Thank you.
You said that so well. Like,
Thank
that
you.
was so well said. Like, because I've seen people on Instagram, like influencers, like Christian influencers saying it says under God. Like, it's like, we got to go with God, sis. And it's like it doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then I was like, I comment, I was like, what about justice for all? Like, they didn't answer, of course, naturally. But yeah, it's kind of like picking and choosing your personal beliefs, thinking that it's supposed to be everyone's personal
Right.
beliefs and be involved with the government. But the
Exactly.
way you went through each individual word and explained it, perfect. I
No,
think
thank
you
you.
just need to be, yeah, yeah. I honestly, I just feel like I have to express how amazing that was. I feel like we need to put you in front of a microphone and just say it to everybody.
I would love to do that. I
Just
would
have
love to do that.
just have everyone just come and just
Yeah.
listen. Everyone's forced to watch if you could. It's so true, and it's like we need to go back to like how we learned too. It's like
Right.
you should put like what you said and then like put it in like a video that they show in school.
Yeah. I love it.
I think it's a great educational video.
Thank you. Thanks for that. You're inspiring me. Shoot.
Really? Okay.
Thank you.
I'm glad. I feel like we're just feeling all the emotions in this episode for real. Yeah, I love it. I love this natural conversation.
Thank you.
Okay. So, let's talk about you and all your work. But before that, how do you think? I guess I feel like you may have already even answered this question in our whole conversation. But I guess how can allies support the transgender community? I know it's kind of like a broad question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
So
broad.
when this question comes up, the first thing that comes up to my mind is educate yourself, which is what you're doing and which is what you're doing with your podcast. So thank you for doing your side of your energetic work. And also, if somebody wants to be an ally, it's really important to first look inward and find out, why do I want to be an ally?
Yeah.
And release judgment of yourself. Make sure you're coming from a place of self love, and then you can begin to culminate and open up doors of your curiosity and ask people, even become friends with the trans person. Hey, I want to meet a trans person this week. Put it out in the universe. I'm going to be in a coffee shop and I'm going to run into someone trans and we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to have an authentic conversation, exchange energy, and find out what their life is like. I mean, an ally can go research online, find out the ways that they could research, go to support groups, go to law changes, legislation meetings, whatever there is in their communities. They can, I mean, really just open up your heart. If you want to be an ally, a true ally, become an
Mhm.
ally to humanity first
Mhm.
and foremost to yourself.
Yeah.
And once you're able to open your heart to yourself fully, then you'll be able to let other people in with no judgment.
Yeah. And I feel like another thing too is always stand up for them. I used to work for Disney in the
Wow.
parks, and some idiot was being horrible to one of the cast members who was transitioning. And I didn't think twice to defend. And I had to make sure I had a proper choice of words. Otherwise, I'd get fired.
Sure.
Anyway, he got kicked out, as he should, because he kept saying, like, because he didn't get what he wanted. He wanted, like, I worked at Test Track, and he wanted, like, the whole car to himself, which we can't do that. And so, because he was so angry, he was blaming the cast member. He was transitioning to a her, and he kept calling her a him. And then I corrected him. And then he looks at me, was like, no, that is a boy. And I said, no, that is a girl. We're like literally at each other.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, anyway, I like pretty much told him off as I was like in like on the job. I just had to make sure I didn't curse at him because, and it was so hard too, because when you work for Disney, you have to make sure you're giving them a positive experience. But in that case, I was like, I'm not putting up with this bullshit,
Well, yeah,
especially like in this situation. Like that's abuse.
it is.
That is
It is
abuse.
abuse.
Yeah. So we ended up kicking him out. He didn't go on the ride. It's like screw that. Like, yeah, yeah. So basically, I think a coroner or a security came in or whatever. But yeah, it was escalating, and then someone told my coroner like, yeah, if it kept going more, I would have jumped in. He was like a police officer off duty. But yeah, I always think back and I'm like, screw these people.
That's really
Yeah.
nice of you to have like stuck up for her like that. Thank
Yeah.
you
And
for
it
doing
was
that. That's really
yeah,
sweet of you.
and it was just like automatic, like in my nature. Like when I went to the break room, she like literally grabbed me because I'm
Aw,
like short.
yeah. So am
I'm
I.
really tiny. So
Me
she
too.
like grabbed me and she was like hugging me like so tight that then my back
Aw.
was gonna break. And and was like, thank you so much. Like she was
Aw.
crying.
Aw, it's beautiful.
And in my head, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I just feel like that was just automatic. Like, I'm not gonna just, I guess in my head, I just feel like that's just how it should be. You know, it should be like normalized to even like not even think twice. Like, obviously,
Right.
I didn't think twice. I was like, should I defend? Should I not? Like, am I gonna lose my job? Like, I think at that point, I didn't even give a shit if I lost my job. But I actually ended up getting like recognized for it and such
Oh, that's beautiful.
for doing that because you know Disney deals with a lot of bullshit that guests do, and we try to make us magic as much as possible. But when it does come to abuse like that, they don't give a shit. They're like, yeah, you can tell, like you're allowed to tell the guests off.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
don't
that's good.
curse. Just don't curse. But yeah, no, they were like, yeah, you can totally tell a guest off if they're doing things like discrimination in that way. I
Yeah,
was
for
like,
sure.
yeah. So thank God they're that kind of company where they're not going to be like, you can't do that, even though they're being like discriminating. Like, yeah. But yeah. So anyway, so I just wanted to just mention that story. But yeah, anyway, let's go into you. Uh,
You know, something I thought right now when you said that when there are people judging people for their own eyes, they see someone and they're presenting, let's say in your situation that you just mentioned, that there's he's transitioning and it's obvious, and maybe they said that that person says go by she now, and people are looking at them and still, you know, wanting to push the other what they believe is right. I mean, the next time someone finds themselves judging someone's gender or sexuality, I mean, just look at a human, and if you were to see a human that had six fingers instead of five, are they any less human? Are they all
mhm.
of a sudden not human? Holy moly, you got six fingers? What are you? I have a heart and a brain and blood
Yeah.
and cells and a body. I'm a human being. And so when people can just really start seeing people's differences with
Yeah.
beauty, like, wow, that's beautiful that you can express yourself that way. That's beautiful that you have six fingers. You know, what's life like for you with six fingers? Is that cool? Is it not cool? What's it like for you? Come at it with the eyes of beauty and grace and gratitude that we can connect with people's differences and learn from one another.
Like that example that you had, because people do have like some people do have like six fingers or
Yeah,
like toes. Like that's actually a thing. So yeah, no, that's a great way of looking at it, and a great way to think about choosing. Also, because everything's a choice too. At the end of the day, it's like
always.
choosing.
It is.
It's choosing if you want to learn, like what I'm doing right now, or choosing to be like, I'm too lazy. I'm just gonna go hate instead.
Yeah,
Because
right.
that's, if you
Yeah.
think about it, hating just says you're a lazy piece of shit. Yeah. I was going to say, excuse my language, but I don't, honestly, I welcome cursing in this podcast, hence the name, Mentally a Badass. But I felt like there was that, I had to express it in that way.
Sure, that's fine.
It
That's
was
fine
the
with
only
me.
way to express it. But you are honestly, I just love it. Do you have like, tell me about your book. What's, what can we learn from your book?
So my book is called A Little Less Fear. It's over 370 pages,
Hmm.
and the last 50 pages are 50 of my poems. But the book basically is my memoirs, following me from childbirth. This is a picture of me when I was 4 to, and this is when I was 40 years old. So this is almost 5 years ago already. I wrote the book
Okay.
4 years ago. So yeah, following the first 40 years of my life and the struggles that I've gone through and how I faced the struggles, all the surgeries that I've gone through, all the pain and suffering that I've gone through, and what I've learned on the other side of suffering. And so people that have read my book, the first and foremost, are really, I guess, shocked at all the major surgeries that I've had, and how I've come out on the other side in joy and loving life the way that I do. So also what I want people to know is that suffering isn't the end all. Like, we're not just here to suffer, we're here to love. And all suffering can turn into love. All suffering is an energy. And all energy can be converted into whatever you like. A lot of it will take reprogramming of your brain, but yes, you can teach an old dog new tricks. It's
Yeah.
nothing is set in stone. There's always a
Yeah.
new road, and there's always a redirection. All rejections are redirections. There's no
Hmm.
right or wrong. There's only clarity. There's no bad, there's no good. There's only the energy that you give it. And whatever you believe, whatever you think, whatever you keep thinking, and whatever you keep telling yourself creates your belief system. So really check
Hmm.
your belief systems, see what's a false belief for you, what's a true belief for you, become more authentic in your own energy. And when you do that, you really start to uplift others, and it becomes a domino effect. You don't know whose life you're changing simply by raising your vibration, meaning living more to towards your true self and towards love, joy, bliss, and abundance. So
Yeah,
that's my
that's,
book. I mean, the book has a lot of suffering in it and how I overcame it, and how, yeah,
yeah, paint to
there's a lot
purpose.
involved. It's a lot involved.
Exactly, paint to purpose. And that's like, you always explain things so great, and I'm just gonna keep saying that.
No,
But
thank you.
I feel like, I hope Riverside doesn't pick me up just saying that all the time, because that would suck. Yeah, that's fantastic. So I want you to share some quotes that you're ready to share.
Well, I can share a poem with you.
Did I say quote? I meant poem.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I guess it's the same thing, right? Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I love poetry. So I started writing poetry when I was about 7 years old. And what I say about poetry for me is that it channels through me, because I remember writing, and I mean, I could barely read like a second grade book at 7. I don't know how I was writing, and these words were flowing through me. And I remember being a teenager, finding some of the stuff that I wrote when I was like 10, and I was like, what? How do I know what that word even means? So to me, when I write poetry, it flows through me. I mean, I can write a poem within under 5 minutes, given any word. It just
Mhm.
comes through me, and I know that it's coming from angels. I know that it's coming from my higher self, and I'm more than grateful then to share this gift. So thank you, I appreciate it. So this one's called Spring. What kind of clarity can I receive other than what I perceive? If in my own time stands still, which direction do I go? Where is the flow? For the flow I find in acceptance for what is, and in allowing what is to become. Spring shows its colors to me, and in her vibrance I shed my darkness and welcome a new birth. That's one. Thank you.
Love that. And I feel like I could totally relate when you feel like life's at a pause and you're like, what's going on? And it's like an off season for me. But then it's like, just know that there's other directions and you'll eventually, yeah. At least I think that's how I interpret it.
Yeah, also whenever things seem dark or at a
Hmm.
standstill, things are
Yeah.
actually working behind the scenes.
True. Yeah,
Things are
I've had
always
those
moving.
moments. Yeah, even when you don't even like know it, because I've been through, well, I feel like we all have our fair share of dark times, but
Sure.
I do believe in like seasons, and that's how my friend, she does as well. So sometimes I'm like thriving and life's great and everything, and sometimes I'm just like, okay, nothing's happening, or like my life is horrible. So I always just to know that if you're going through like a rough time, like it's natural, it's part of it. And then also I just get excited for what's to come, because
Yeah,
I noticed that like when I go through hell, there's something amazing that's right after that. Like one
always.
piece, like one time
Yeah.
I was my soul was dying at a job for like 5 years, and it felt like there was no hope and there was a dead end, and I was just stuck and feeling miserable. But then something, it's kind of crazy. The universe gifted me the opportunity to leave my 9 to 5, where I was working on being a social media manager, and I was actually getting denied from all these companies that I was applying. You're just a traditional job. They all kept denying me. And I was just like, is this not meant for me? And I get so much rejection. I was just trying to just keep my cool on that. I was crying. I felt miserable. At one point, I was suicidal. And then I was able to do like schooling for it for about a year, and Disney paid for it, which was very nice. And then I opened up a gig on Fiverr. And then one morning, 3 months after I opened it, I woke up one morning and my inbox blew up.
Wow.
I went viral on Fiverr. And I'm
Yeah,
like, I was so overwhelmed. I'm like, I have all this stuff on my plate. And this just like, it was so unexpected. And because of that, I am able to not have to work a 9 to 5.
that's
And
amazing.
I have more
What a
time to
great
do
story
stuff
that
like
is.
this. Yes, yes. And it happened another time before where I was miserable. I lived in New Jersey. I was miserable and I was in college, and I just, just life was just like whatever. And then I applied for the Disney college program, and I didn't think I was going to get it at all. I was like, I had a very low self esteem, low confidence, and I was like, this is a big company. They're not going to want me, right? I was like, let me just, it's not going to hurt to apply, put an application, right? So I did that, and then I just went to sleep naturally as a college student. I woke up, and they're like, we want you to push you to the next stage, do the web based interview. So then I did that, and I got pushed to the final round. And I did the phone interview. And a week later, I got accepted. And
That's
I was
awesome.
like, this can change my whole life. And if that never happened, I would still be living in New Jersey because Disney brought me to Florida.
Wow. That's
So
amazing the way it
those are
all unfolds.
right? So those are two examples of that.
Hmm.
And so anytime I'm just going through hell, I'm like, thank you, universe. Thank you for like upsetting me. So what do you have for me next?
I love that. Yeah, what do you have for me next? Anytime that we feel like there's like chaos, without chaos, things can't get in order. Things always have to be chaotic, shaken up before things can come into your alignment. That's why it's best
Yes.
just to accept it when you're feeling like that. Okay, I'm feeling stuck. That's okay. I
Mm-hmm.
can get unstuck by just allowing the stuck feeling to pass and knowing that things are still working out no matter what. We're never
Yeah.
stuck. We're never stuck.
Yeah. And as long as I keep seeing angel numbers, I feel better. I see angel
Yeah,
numbers
I love angel numbers.
all the time, like crazy amounts. Sometimes I see it just like everywhere. At one point, it'll be like 5 minutes, and it's like I see it on my phone. I see it on like the clock. I see it in like just, I don't know, like the most random places that you
Yeah.
wouldn't even think. And it's like one time I saw like 555 or 1 at the exact same time. I was like,
Yep.
yeah, it was a lot.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just like a little overwhelming, but I'm like, that's good. So I do truly believe we do have angels like, supporting us and
Absolutely.
such. It's
We all
so
have at least
comforting.
one. We all have at least one. We're never alone.
Yeah, there's this joke that I made where it's like the angels are probably looking at me being like, Justine, get your life in order. 'Cause I keep making the same mistake. And it's
Yeah,
like
I know.
kind of just,
Like,
and
come
it's,
on, we'll keep throwing signs at you until you get it. What's going on?
sometimes I think I do see the signs, but then I'm stubborn. I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, I'm going to go screw my life even more. Because I have self sabotage problems. It's
Man.
fine.
They're like, all right, well, we'll still keep giving you signs till you get it. They're there to
God.
support us no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I completely feel like I'm just like watching myself just screw up my life because so much self awareness. That's like the
Yeah.
one thing that kind of sucks about being so self aware. Is just I just watch myself self sabotage.
Oh,
Like,
man.
oh, great job, Justine. You're doing fantastic. All right. Well, oh my gosh, I had such a fun conversation with you.
So did I. It's so easy to talk. You're really easy to talk to. I really appreciate your energy and thank you for your curious mind and for having the beautiful heart that you have. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. That means a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Well, I have all your info, of course, in the description so people can check you out. That sounded really inappropriate how I said it.
Not at
The
all.
way
You know
I
what?
was like,
Actually,
Uh-huh.
Actually, I started a second podcast with two trans women, and we record every Monday, and it's called so my regular podcast is called the Little Less Fear Podcast.
Uh-huh.
December 28th will be my 4th year podcasting, personal growth podcast.
Uh-huh.
And I started a second podcast with two trans women, and it's been really
Mm.
incredible. So far, we recorded our third this past Monday. It's on YouTube, and it's called Harmony and Humanity. So
Okay.
it's me with a trans woman that's 27 and a trans woman that's, I believe, 52. And they both have, I mean, it's been really incredible, and it's all about asking and answering trans questions on transgender. So hop on over to Harmony Humanity if you have more questions about the transgender community and transitioning, and we answer everything, and we go live too.
Yeah, I think that this episode is definitely a perfect kind of like dipping your toes in the water. And if people want to know more, they can definitely go into your, like, listen to your podcast and know more detail because we can only say so much in an hour.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, everyone's listening. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day and stay tuned for the next episode.